I won't explain.
Oh, good. I deal with very intimate exchanges between people. And I do a lot of printing and hand. Marcia says I spelled her name wrong.
But I like it better this way. I might consider changing
Her
it.
name was spelled incorrectly because she is right below the word March. So her name is spelled Marcia. I sometimes even classified as a poet. I do nervous books. I lectured at Mount Berry College in Georgia recently, and I was supposed to deliver a 1-hour talk for which I was being paid the most I've ever gotten paid, and I found that I couldn't talk. I looked deep into my heart, and I had absolutely nothing to say. So I had some props, and I proceeded for 2 hours to do a very strenuous physical presentation of myself, which had something to do with Georgia mud, because I ended up on the floor pushing and grinding into the floor huge sheets of wood and sticks and screens, and it was an attempt to be very low and very basic. I don't forget. I'm looking at all the hands that are being extended to me. On the back. I've had 2 books published, and I just remembered that there's a 3rd book, which is a circuit book, which the Whitney Museum published, called The Artist's Address Book. And Jean Lippman, who did the book at the Whitney Museum, told me that she had gotten the whole idea from the New York Correspondence School. And in being called the Artist Address Book, there were about 20, well, how many letters are on the alphabet? There was from A to Z, from Albers to Zox or whatever. I was to be the J page, which pleased me very much because I thought they would do Jasper Johns, but they did Johnson. And but I have been consistently very shy, so I managed, when the photographer named Marvin Schwartz, who did the photographs for the book, when he came to my house to photograph me, he photographed me the way one would photograph an artist in his studio, and I did everything he wanted me to do. I was very cooperative. And then, since I liked him, I allowed him into the upstairs of my house and into my 3 bedrooms where I store my papers and paintings and junk, and which is generally in a very chaotic mess. And I allowed him to document this. And eventually the photographs were shown at the Whitney Museum, but I did not bother to go to see the exhibit. And I had a sumptuous catalog printed last November in North Carolina. And I haven't even bothered to read my own book, which is a catalog, but the Village Voice decided, or they wrote in print that this catalog was one of the best art books of 1976, which pleased me very much because we had thought of it as a catalog. This is the catalog, which has my drawing on the front. The spine has instructions on how to draw a rabbit, which is basically very simple. You draw a circle and add some ears. This is a photo of me taken by a friend named Ara Ignatius, which was photographed in the New Jersey dump, where when they tore down Penn Station, they had all these Grecian marble columns, which they hauled over to the New Jersey dump, and they're still probably lying there since they're very big and heavy. So it's a kind of Grecian landscape. And my friend photographed me there, which is also next to the railroad tracks. And this photo was taken, there's some kind of a thing behind here of a railroad tower, and the trains go by very frequently and very fast. And he either made me stand on the railroad tracks in some point of danger, which may explain the expression on my face, or he asked me to go stand over in the swamp where there were rats jumping around. So, it was a very unusual photo session. This catalog has a very nice essay by William Wilson, who has written about me in Arts magazine and other publications. In the first issue of the London Art and Artists, he had a rather important essay on the New York Correspondence School. These pages are loose. They're not in any bound fashion, and they're in two parts. They're all the same size. They're printed by offset printing, and they are reproductions of the items that were in the show in the North Carolina Raleigh State Museum. I can't really show these. This is part of an early book about death, which was from the late 1950s, which was all done by offset printing, which was also singular pages that were selling for 6 pages for 98 cents or some like that. And some were larger pages, which they folded for the catalog. Ada Baby is referential to cannibalism. It's also a Ukrainian word for dance, which appears down on 7th Street in the Lower East Side. And this is just a sequence of... This is a drawing of Carmen Miranda by Carl Worthem, a friend who's a Harry Who from Chicago, who has an opening this afternoon at the Phyllis Kind Gallery, whose eyelashes I once found at the bottom of a swimming pool in Philadelphia, which is another story. I deal constantly with lots of people everywhere. This catalog lists over 100 lenders. I have probably 1,000 or so people who have collections of my letters.
Could you give us very specifically what is the New York Correspondence School?
Yes, I have received this year an NEA grant and a CAPS grant, and I had to fill out forms to state very explicitly what it is, who I am, because I'm an individual who is a group, and I am me and I am you, and That was an example of my mind splitting into several parts. I'm trying to answer your question, but I'm also trying to get back to my presentation.
Yeah.
But to answer your question in the way that I answer questions, I was sitting by the window earlier, looking out the window, which is what I think windows are for, and I saw people jogging, riding bicycles, going by in cars, and walking. And to answer your question, I am involved with a global activity of communication with anybody everywhere about anything. There was a mammoth show in New Zealand last month of Correspondence Art. It is now an art form. I receive letters from Italy where there's things happening, and occasionally, like every year, I'll get one letter from Yugoslavia or Romania or Russia or someplace like that. I hear mostly from England, France, the States, and very much Canada because of File magazine. And the Correspondence School is a daily activity. I do this 7 days a week, even on Sunday when there is no mail delivery. I begin my day by opening letters, making a rather close study of what I receive in the mail, and replying to pertinent, whatever is necessary to reply to. And I have in my house, which I've declared an archive, 20 or 30 year stockpile of papers and objects and material, which through my various grants I am going to do a book about. I'm filing things. I have a Minolta copy machine. I'm documenting, distributing, making available to anyone who wants it any information that I, within the space of one day, can get out. I deal with thousands of people everywhere, and I am a one-man operation working with the help of friends who occasionally contribute their talents to help. Ask me another question.
Oh, well, you are continuing. I'll ask you, do you want to continue, or do you want another question?
No, I want another question.
Okay. What's the Spam Radio Club, and what's the Shelley Duvall Fan Club?
The Spam Radio Club is one division of my school, which over the years it's contradictory because I'm dealing every day with thousands or hundreds of people, but I can physically, in phone conversations or in letter writing, deal with only one person at a time. So I select favorite children or people who, because of witticisms of their name or the magic of objects that they bring to the school. There's also a Spam Belt Club because of Mike Belt, who his name came after the Spam Radio Club. But the Spam Radio actually was a pop art item produced by the Hormel Meat Company, which was it was Jim Hormel who gave the thing to me. It was a little radio in the shape of a Spam can, very much like the Warhol soup can, but you could turn it and music would come out of it, and you could take it to the beach. It had a little handle. You could walk down the street with it, like the way Taylor Mead used to do with a small radio. And I occasionally give to my friends boxes of recycled papers or objects, and I gave to a cartoonist friend named Jim Bone the Spam Radio, which he liked very much, and to my delight he appeared in Soho one Saturday afternoon carrying the radio. I was extremely jealous that I had given this to him because it looked so good on him that I wanted it back. I rarely ask for things back because I am not an Indian giver, but I wanted the Spam Radio back. So I went to a supermarket and I bought a can of Spam and tied a string to it and had my own fake Spam radio. And so we would have meetings of the Spam Radio Club at the Spring Street Bar or wherever we happened to meet. And Jim Bone would put his real antique Spam radio on the table, and I would put my fake Spam radio on the table. And we, after a while, the Spam radios gave birth to a 7 1/2 ounce baby Spam can, which is available in any supermarket, which is a little baby can of Spam. And this confused Jim Bone's wife very much. She couldn't understand how her husband and my Spam can had given birth to this baby, but Laura Bone would rather politely ask when we met. She's from Houston. She would say, "How's that Spam baby?" Well, I was asked to lecture at the Baltimore, Maryland Institute, and I drove down to Baltimore and had some very hectic car problems. But the show must go on, so I arrived where I was supposed to be after I walked across the entire city of Baltimore to get there. One of my lecture was called The Exquisite Corpse, because my dealer in Milan had sent me a rather terrific catalog of an Exquisite Corpse exhibit that he had arranged with wonderful reproductions of all the original 1920s Dali, Tanguy, Exquisite Corpse drawings, which was a surrealist drawing game very important to the surrealists at that time. And I decided that my lecture, since I was around when John Cage and Rauschenberg were doing radio pieces, was to be a kind of academic chance radio performance of music and words from the radio with my text interspersed as a kind of Exquisite Corpse composition. And I had a few thoughtful props. One was the Schwartz Exquisite Corpse catalog, and then I brought baby Spam to Baltimore with me in a pink baggie, which I placed on my lectern. The lecture was one of the worst ones that I was ever involved with. It was very difficult and chaotic because I immediately had a rude heckler who taunted me from the audience. He had, I thought, had caught on that my method was Dadaistic, and he was being Dadaistic in return. He was very cruel and sadistic in his taunting. And since I was being paid to perform and to lecture, I was not to be undone by him. There was a second performer from the audience, a young man named Sam, who, to my amazement, at one point streaked across the stage naked, grabbed baby Spam in the pink baggie, and simply whisked my Spam baby off the lectern, thus creating a new term, spam-napped. So, like Marcia, this was Sam Spam, who had baby Spam was never seen again, which was rather sad. Now, that was in Baltimore. That very week I went to Hartford, Connecticut for the opening of an exhibition called Poets of the Cities, which was a big nostalgia exhibition of Rauschenberg, Robert Creeley, California artists like George Herms. It was a large show at the Wadsworth Atheneum, which originated in Houston and had gone to San Francisco, and they had a big dinner. And while I was in Hartford, having received a clipping in the mail about a streaker in Rome named Ray Johnson, whose name is Raymond Johnson, who was arrested. I corresponded with him because of the similarity of our names. And he wrote saying he was a student at Trinity College in Hartford. So while I was there, I thought naturally I should find him and introduce myself to him, which I subsequently did. And I invited him to the party that evening, so there were two Ray Johnsons, and with great delight told everyone the streaker stories of that week. I'm here to talk about books, and I am digressing, but books are not my main concern, although everything I do can be put into a book in this fashion. This is the first page of the book about death called A Boop About Death, in which married Korean age 4 choked to death on a peanut butter sandwich last night. I used a clip from the New York Times. They don't do this anymore because trivia, because of new space demands, is out. But they used to have interesting items about, for instance, the Ada Baby page. There is a New York Times reference in Jakarta, a boa constrictor or whatever it was slithering around, and ate a baby, 3 goats, and a rabbit or something like that. So there is a pun on ate a baby, which eventually, if the book about death ever gets working again, will be included.